before I bought it. This house had been empty for 4 years. It was the kind of site that no one really wanted.
In some ways it's very simple. We've repaired a series of terraces and we've extended out into them, stepping up. But through these simple moves, it becomes spatially complex and architecturally rich.
The big issue on this site, and I think the reason why a lot of people didn't like it was really dark, it was really outdated, and I don't think anyone could see or work out, well, how do you solve this? How do you make it into a place where you want to actually spend time and live?
And in particular, the terraced garden at the rear of the property kind of stepped up and was very dilapidated, and it was in such poor condition that the house kind of turned its back on it.
It had some slightly uneven concrete stairs that you were constantly afraid you'd fall off, and 2 of the structures you couldn't go in because they were likely to fall down. So it was a bit of a daunting prospect.
You know, there was a sense of kind of horror, but also a kind of delight, actually. When as an architect you see the opportunity for usefulness, for being able to kind of transform something for the better, I think that's kind of an exciting thing.
I definitely wanted to maintain as much of the existing house as possible because it had the history of the site, it had a lot of original features, and so it's trying to balance between the old side of the house and the new. And I think sometimes being in the house is almost like telling a story of the past.
It became apparent that we needed to be more proactive in terms of the structural solutions towards the back of the building, that actually these terraces weren't able to support new buildings. We discussed what the environmental and financial costs were of this process of fully demolishing and rebuilding, and actually it seemed really inappropriate to us to go down that route.
And I think it's something that is important to me as well, to not just try and do everything new, to try and make sure there's an element of reuse, about being aware of environmental impact on the site and bringing in older houses back into use.
We kind of embarked on a different approach, an approach that we sometimes liken to the idea of darning a pair of socks. Stitching and threading the hillside back into life through a kind of patchwork of strategies that retained as much of the old as possible, introduced new elements through all these different structural approaches so that once more it could be used and wasn't a structural risk.
Spaces have changed quite a bit now that everything has been opened up. There's a new extension along the back, there's a lot of openings so you can really move around the space, and then as you move up the hill there's a garden room that you can walk into that opens out onto the terrace, and then going up another level on the hill there's additionally a sort of work from home office. There's a few areas that I really like. This area we're sitting in here, the gallery area, I actually think this has kind of unlocked all the potential. It's not a defined room in a traditional sense. It's not a space where you clearly do something in particular, but I found that it's one of the spaces that people use the most. Like if I have friends, if I have family over, everyone just ends up sitting out here because it's a nice place. You feel right in the heart of everything. Part of the brief as well was to this sort of indoor-outdoor feel, like the ability to move through spaces not only within the house, but moving from inside to outside and feeling that you're quite connected to the space outside.
We really enjoyed this way of developing a contemporary form of timber construction in a way that related to older forms of carpentry. We wanted to work in a way that prioritised an opportunity for future reuse by not using nails as a determinant form of connecting, but also something about architectural culture where the various elements of posts and beams are kind of legibly seen to support one another. And so because of that, the column visibly supports the beam, and one beam is notched to support another beam.
I like the layering of that wood. I like the slightly industrial feel it brings to it because you can really see how it's constructed rather than it having some coated in something to make it look perfect. I like the imperfectness of some of the materials we've used.
It's this kind of combination of these 3 materials in particular, the timber, the galvanised steel and the concrete, which I think define the project, and all of them significantly I think are kind of don't have an applied finish. They're all kind of naturally finished materials that weather and age and develop character over time. So there's an idea of structure that's to do with architectural culture, but also about future reuse and repurposing that feeds into a kind of broader idea of how a space is configured.
I think that's what architecture should be about. Let's challenge ourselves to think and find solutions in an innovative way, but without losing sight of what's come before.
But we're also thinking about how the present might project into the future and how in 50, 100 years' time this building might be repurposed, and that sense of constructing in a way that allows and facilitates forms of repurposing. I think it's really important as we move forward. But I think often there's something more remarkable about making something extraordinary out of something ordinary. Its ambitions are more than that of an extension. I think its ambitions are site-wide, about site transformation.